Hey, everybody, welcome to the Struggling Hunters, where we're working hard every day to bring you our successes and our struggles on this podcast. I'm Eric,
I'm Joe,
and we are
the
the.
struggling hunters. Kind of jumped the gun on that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a joke. I mean, I'm just having fun with it every week. We mess it up on purpose.
Say what you want.
Oh man.
I give 100% to this 100% of the time.
What's that? What's that? Will Ferrell, the anchor man, is something about it works every time, 60% of the time, or something like that.
Yeah, but I can't remember how that goes.
Yeah.
That cologne stuff
Yeah.
smells like gasoline.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It kind of has a pungent smell.
Yeah, it works 100%. Yeah, I can't remember that.
I think it's something. It works every time, 60% of the time, or something like that.
But
Anyway, let's get into the podcast. Yeah, so here we are, the end of the year of 2020. Thank God. We'll be moving on to another year. Hopefully 2021's a little better. But today's podcast is just kind of going over um, where me and Joe, how the start of the podcast to now, and then kind of going into what we're hoping to achieve in the year to come. And I don't know. I kind of feel like this podcast is maybe for some of those guys that want to start a podcast or something. Kind of see what we have experienced through the year, starting our own podcast, and just being a couple regular guys that just enjoy hunting and kind of wanted to uh, make a little extra, make a little more out of it, as far as instead of just telling each other our hunt stories, we get to rope some of you guys in that are listening uh, on our hunt stories and our expeditions and
yeah, like he was saying, uh, the start of this, I think we've said it a handful of times, but trying to bring people along our journey to be, and then talk things out. How have to have Eric as a sounding board, or those that of you that are listening. Hopefully, there's some type of a nugget somewhere that we've said that I don't know. Maybe it helped your hunting situation, or had you look at it from a different aspect, or helped you to remember to do something. Like I feel like that's looking back over the year, on how my hunts have gone and what I could have done to make them better. You know, that's I think end of story, end of day. That's what the Struggling Hunters podcasts are for. Is we're just trying to better ourselves, and I didn't realize. I think we were talking about this earlier, me and Eric, or I'm sorry, Eric and I. um, that we back in April when we got started, Eric was like, "Hey, I have a couple ideas, and let me run them past you, see if you're down with that." And he's like, "Hey, have you heard of Zoom?" I was like, "No." And, "Oh, we can get on and do a podcast and record it." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." So we got on and started doing this, uh, and then like we've said before, both of us have hunted pretty much since we were 12, and we've gone on hunts with uncles and dads before we're even 12. So like we've here we are all growing up, lives of our own, uh, claiming that we are hunters. And so here we're going to start this big bad struggling hunter podcast channel and be able to be the gurus that of all the gurus that I've ever hunted, and 2020 has done nothing but proved us that we probably don't know what we're talking about.
Oh man, that's definitely true. I mean, we definitely got humbled in a lot of ways. I mean, we're still plugging away, and that's all that matters. Um, yeah, we okay over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, that's the
Um,
thing with these podcasts is they're raw and real.
they are. And we just have a little soda can spillage.
Oh no, do we
But
got to do we got to fix it? We could always
no, we're
stop it and get back to it.
no, we're I think we're good.
Okay. Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, kind of lost where we were at, but being kind of humbled this year. Yeah, I mean, I put a lot of stock in that we both would be more successful, and I know it wasn't a lack of trying. Maybe some mistakes, maybe just kind of being in the wrong areas at the wrong time.
Well, I think we've said it before, but like with my deer hunt this year, thought it was in the bag. Deer were showing up consistently on the weekends. They were in the same field every Saturday, like I thought they would be. Then, a couple weeks before the hunt, they disappeared. I have no clue where they went, and I didn't have permission to hunt the whole little valley thing. And talked to other people in the area; they didn't know where they went, and so like it kind of threw me for a loop. And so then we went up hunting in a whole different area. Anyways, yeah. So we had some wrenches thrown in our gears this year and tried new things, and it's been kind of interesting to kind of look back and mull over what we did and what we could do different next year.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're 100% right. I mean, I'm already kind of figuring out plans of what I'm gonna do different, and hopefully have more success. And um, I mean, from a little of everything too, from fitness level, man, it's so annoying. I mean, the older I get, I try to start, getting some exercise in, walking trails or something, whatever it is before hunting season. And then you get out there and you're out there a few days straight and walking everywhere. And you're like, oh man, my foot hurts, my leg hurts, and you're like, why am I experiencing all these pains, and it definitely humbles you on a fitness level. Uh, I mean, that's probably one of my biggest struggles is trying to stay mentally sharp and mentally and physically fit to keep plugging away is hard. To keep going as hard on the third and fourth day as I was on the first day.
Right.
It gets tough. It gets really tough. Fatigue kicks in, and your physical ability. So I know for next year, like or for 2021, that's one of my big goals is really trying to dial in fitness and working on the cardio um, but then I mean a lot of other things too. I it's so hard because you feel like you're doing everything as right as you can, right? You're not purposely trying to make mistakes. You're trying to find for my situation, I was trying to find the elk, doing everything that I could think of, but I just was not running into the elk. Um, and then whenever we found one elk, I hit it the next day, but never went back to that area. And I'm like, was that a good play? Was that a bad play? What was I camping in the wrong spot? Was I camping in the right spot? I mean, just so many back and forth questions. And um, I think one thing is even where we were at, uh, we kind of hit like a lot of different sides of that mountain or throughout that canyon. I mean, we went down, maybe a couple miles or whatever, and went on different ridge lines. But a part of me kind of wonders if we should have just kind of chose like one ridge and just hit it every day. Even if it was exhausting, didn't feel like nothing was there. Maybe if we would have kept going back to one spot, maybe something would have happened, or maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's just, I guess that's, you just kind of overthink everything. Whenever it doesn't go your way, you just kind of overthink everything.
Right.
And
I was gonna say too, like along with overthinking. So being that we just had Christmas, I found myself sharing my deer hunting story over again. The one when I went back up the second weekend to our what we're referring to as the honey hole now
yeah,
that we found the last day. Um, you know, and uh, and like I had two different experiences where I got on two different bucks, and I got within, oddly, it was 70 yards on both of them. Um, but what I'm trying to get at is, as I was telling the stock on the second hunt, on the second stock, uh, that one, I get, uh, as I replay it in my head and try and think what I could do better, for whatever reason, on that stock, I was chomping at the bit. Um, I had the wind in my favor. Well, actually, both stocks I was, but this one, I had the wind in my favor, but I had nothing to hide behind. I didn't have anything to, there wasn't other trees or anything that I could hide behind to get closer. All I had, like I said, all I had in my favor was the wind. And even when I was retelling the story, you know, I I forgot on what I could, like, not that now looking back, I can tell what I did wrong, what I needed to do. But what I guess I'm getting at is I'm hoping by telling this part of the story, I can change it for myself for this next year. Um, I was sitting there, couldn't see the buck, but I knew I had to close the distance. And so like as I tell the story, I know I'm like, oh, I got to get in there. I got to get closer. I got to close this distance. And here, if I would have took a step back and realized it's only like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30, and here, it's June, it's July, it's August, and so it doesn't get dark till what, 8:39.
yeah,
So I had a handful of hours that I could have sat there and waited for the buck to make the move. Instead, in my head, I was like, oh, I got to get in there. I got to close this up. I got to seal the deal. And the only way I can do that is getting closer. And like I realized that I need to slow that down. But when I was telling the story again, like I found myself in that mindset of getting closer and wanting to seal the deal. And and so and a change for me is going to be realizing what time it is, and allowing the deer to make the mistake instead of you know me making the mistake. So I think one of the things I want to set as my goal to change for the next hunting season is you know try to allow the deer to make the mistake, not me. Put myself in the position for the deer to make a mistake in my favor, not me make a mistake in the deer's favor.
right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. That's, you have a good point there about kind of rushing your opportunity.
Yeah.
Actually, we said that in the last podcast about, well, it was a whole nother subject, but we said that in the last podcast about when has it ever worked out when you try
Oh,
to rush something, or
true.
you said that actually. And um, yeah, so kind of comes back around. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's kind of one of my mistakes too, is always getting frustrated of not seeing something where I'm at. So I want to make so many changes all the time.
Well, I think, there is some truth to that though. Like, I don't, we're not evidently, I'm not the greatest elk hunter. Don't know that I ever will be, but the one thing that always sticks to my mind, um, when you're talking about elk is like the number one thing that always pops up is elk are nomadic,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so I think, yeah, they have like their traditional places they go, but for the most part, you know, it's nothing for them to cover 20 miles in a day. It's nothing for them to. So yeah, like, I forget where I was going with that. Anyways, I'll just tie it back into those are the first two things that when I think elk hunting, that's what pops up in my mind.
Well, and that's the hardest thing about it is, I mean, if you don't get into elk, you may never get into elk. I mean, that's kind of been my experience. Is they might not be at the same place twice, and I mean, so you gotta do your best. And I don't know, it's definitely just, I mean, I guess kind of getting back to what we were talking about is I think we both had bigger hopes and aspirations of the podcast, and we're gonna have some success under our belt and be able to document it. And it just didn't quite work out that way, and it happens. I mean, it happens to the best of us. I mean, not often, but even the bigger guys that are doing podcasts and hunting videos, I mean, they come up short every once in a while too. So it's just something that happens. And but I think at the end of the day, kind of tying into uh, what it's been like from the beginning of this podcast, whenever we started this, and to now is just committing. I mean, I think some of our successes this year, as far as the podcast, was committing to just doing this every week. I mean, we've literally put out a video every single week uh since when did we start? April.
April, yeah.
Since April, we've put a podcast out every week, and some of those podcasts have done pretty good, or we felt like we'd done a pretty good job, and some podcasts we barely got by. But at the end of the day, we just stayed committed. And uh, a saying that I like to say is we did our best and forgot the rest. And you know uh, just stayed consistent, and that's what we plan on doing for 2021. And it's been a learning process. I mean, it really went from a couple of stories around the campfire, talking about how cool it'd be to, kind of do YouTube and hunting stuff, to actually doing it. And our biggest key to success is just staying consistent, and that's where we've kind of ended up, is we've just stayed consistent, and we're plugging away. And I think for both of us, we're hoping that we bring value. I mean, the whole goal of this is to bring value to people, as far as is being humble enough to go over our mistakes, to say, man, we really dropped the ball here. We really need to get better for next season, or whatever the case may be. Um, we're kind of brutally honest. We kind of make ourselves not look so bright and macho. We have to humble down, and for me, I mean, I think that holds value. We're just telling the truth. We're just a couple guys that love hunting and want to talk about hunting. And that's kind of another, there's all these thoughts going through my head at once whenever I'm saying this, but that was another thing too, is just like, you know, this podcast portion of it, of the struggling hunters, is kind of like, well, uh, somebody kicks on our podcast and driving down the road, and we're sitting here BSing back and forth. And, even though we're the ones talking, they kind of feel like they're part of the group, like, just hanging out with a couple of fellow hunters. And so I mean, that's kind of the goal of our podcast, to just kind of bring that value, make people feel like they can relate to us, and you know, hopefully that brings value to people. That's what our goal is. And I guess another part that I want to say is like the success that we've had on this podcast for being who we are. And uh I think when we both started, we've Joe and I talked earlier, and we kind of alluded to this. And you know, whenever you first like, hey, let's start a podcast, the goals and aspirations are like so high. You know, you're like, oh, I'm gonna be the next you know, meat eater or whatever. But at the end of the day, like from where we started to where we are now, I mean, as of right now on YouTube, it is what it is. But you know, we're at like 32 subscribers, and for us, like the actual numbers, we're like, man, that's pretty cool. Like we literally started at 0 subscribers, and here we are at 32 subscribers. I mean, you know, we made some progress. That's pretty dang cool. And so, I mean, it's just exciting. And then the views are, you know, in the thousands, and and they just keep getting bigger and bigger, and it's just a fun process. I mean, this whole thing, there's so many reasons why I wanted to do a podcast, but just watching the growth of the podcast has just been so cool to watch. And I'm excited for 2021. I mean, you know, our goal is, I know one of my goals is try to get as close to 1,000 subscribers as possible in the year 2021, have more hunting success under our belt. That's a big one. um, and be able to just keep plugging away and going hard in the paint with with this with this podcast and the struggling hunters as a whole. We have a lot of other plans for the future that so the podcast is kind of just a portion of it, but we also want to do hunting videos, kind of other types of videos, learning videos. You know, we just kind of want to do other aspects more than just the podcast. So, like I say, as far as the podcast portion, you know, it's we're excited for this side of it, and how much it's grown just pretty much doing podcast stuff. So I don't know. Is there anything?
No, Eric, you got it, man.
I know I really feel like I went on a long rant there.
But you know, as you were sitting there, you know, telling us what you were wanting to do for next year and what that's going to kind of look like, you know, it kind of caused me to reflect on, you know, what I've said tonight and where we've come from and where, you know, I guess is what I'm trying to say is we're hoping, the struggling hunters is hoping that, you know, you can kind of see this journey that we're going on and we're trying to bring you along with it. You know, we're going to be choppy with it at times. And we hope that you'll forgive us for whatever little mistakes we make. But, you know, it's this journey of us coming to become, uh, in a sense, I think our end goal in 20 years from now is that we're greater woodsmen. We're better woodsmen. We understand, you know, I know it's kind of a broad topic and a strong topic, but, you know, hopefully I'm hoping that in 20 years that through this journey of the struggling hunters and you that are listening, you know, putting stuff together that, you know, becoming a better understanding of the woods and, you know, yeah, kind of hunting along the way. But I feel in order for me to be a better hunter, I, you know, would want to be a better woodsman because that, you know, use the word woodsman as a term of meaning understanding what's going out on in the outdoors, you know, how the kind of the ecosystem works and how weather pattern works and you know, how rainfall is going to affect the herds that year, um, or even understanding, hopefully getting to the point of understanding how healthy a herd is or how healthy the deer are in that particular area that I'm hunting. Healthy as in numbers and healthy as in, you know, are they eating good or are they not? Like, I don't know. Some of that, it fascinates me a little bit. I want to get a better understanding of that. And I think, like I said, it's, becoming a better woodsman, better outdoorsman, and a hunter. And hopefully, you know, this journey that me and Eric are going on, we can share it with you guys and all learn something together.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, having a nugget, having those little nuggets of information along the way, or like, I guess what I mean is this podcast has brought us to where we're, we've done more research, implanted it in our brains to talk about vegetation, and it's kind of funny because it's still one of those things. Like, I feel like I have a better understanding of it today than I did a year ago, I guess, but then there's still more about it that I want to learn and try to digest, or try to take in, uh to figure out exactly where what those elk and deer habits are and their vegetation habits. And it's like it's like sometimes, like, reading it off a piece of paper is fine, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's cool. But then, like, seeing it out in the wild is kind of another story, if you kind of picking up what I'm putting down. So
Yeah.
uh so sharing that and trying to explain it the best way we can when we can is kind of the goal. I mean, that's kind of where the information part of it, we're trying to do the research, trying to get an understanding of it ourselves. And as we learn those little types of tricks and tips, we're sharing it on this podcast to share with people, and hopefully bringing value that way. And not 100% sure where I was going with that, but
You sounded good.
hey, that's all that matters sometimes.
But but yeah, but not to kill it or keep beating a dead horse, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed what we've been putting out there. It probably seems a little choppy at times, but that's why we call ourselves the struggling hunters.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and in 2021, I think, I mean, I feel like, so I guess that's another aspect of the podcast portion that I wanted to talk about too. When we first started, man, like, we knew nothing about nothing. All we knew is that we wanted to make a podcast, basically. And I feel like today, this is episode 37. And I feel like at episode 37, we've gotten so much better than what we were when we first started. Um, I mean, I still make mistakes. Whenever I listen back to our episodes, I'm like, oh man, that sounds so cringy. But at the end of the day, I'm like, well, it also sounds better than what it sounded like when we first started. Like, we've definitely made some progress in how we present ourselves, and we're still working on it. But in 2021, I hope that this podcast, we keep getting better and making better content, making it more listenable for everybody out there that wants to give us a shot. And but it's been really cool to watch our personal growth in the podcast world. And I guess the biggest reason that I'm saying a lot of this is, like, if one of you guys out there are listening to this and you want to start a podcast, I think most people are like, oh, podcast would be cool or whatever. But a lot of people don't ever start it, or they start it and then they don't ever go back to it. Whatever the case may be, like, just look at us. I mean, we're not big time or anything yet. Hopefully that day comes. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say, oh, I want to stay small forever. I mean, I don't. So, um, But what I am saying is like, you just got to commit, if you really want to make a change in your life, you got to commit to just doing it. I mean, just set aside some time. Me and Joe, we set aside time every week to do this podcast. And, we've had to reschedule a few times, but it's important to us to not ever not go back to it, if that makes sense. So, uh, I know I've had to reschedule a few times in 2020. Um, but a few days later, we're still back on it, putting out the content to put on YouTube. And I mean, it's just about a commitment and doing your best and forgetting the rest. I mean, there's a lot of humbleness. There's things that I say or the way that I say them that I'm like, God, I sound like that. And but at the end of the day, um, you just got to look past it all and just move forward. And so, if you're thinking of doing a podcast, just get started. Um, I know for me, like that was one thing on a personal level, starting this podcast. I was like, one thing I want to do is over time. And I want to inspire people. I want to tell people what I just said and make them think like, oh man, if this guy can do it, I can do it. And I don't know where this podcast is going to end up in the future. I mean, I know we're going to keep plugging away for a very long time. I mean, we don't have a stop point or anything, but I mean, it could grow really big. It could stay fairly small. It's hard to say where that's going to go, but I know that we're going to be putting out content every week. And it's just one of those things, like we get more out of it by doing this than money or fame or big numbers on the YouTube channel. It's not what we're getting out of it. We enjoy doing it. We're learning new stuff every day. It's making us better hunters. It's making us better talkers, which we both thought we were pretty good talkers before the podcast, but after the podcast, we've just kept getting better and better in all aspects of life. And I think, it's even kind of helped us with our discipline as far as is keep plugging away at doing this. And I guess this thought just kind of came in my head, but it's kind of the same thing for hunting too. If you're like Joe and I, and you weren't successful this year, keep plugging away, just commit, do your best and forget the rest. And it'll all come back around eventually. You just gotta, you know, there's a lot of give up in people these days, and you just can't give up. You got to keep plugging away. Um, I don't know,
I
man. I
think
feel like I'm unpacking a bunch of thoughts tonight. I don't know what's going on. I'm all hyped up.
all hyped up on struggling hunters,
Yeah.
but kind of along, I guess, what Eric was saying, and kind of maybe bringing it back in a little bit. The struggling hunters, we're not called the successful hunters or the great the great hunters or what, like we
The
for the
greatest
struggle.
hunters to ever live.
Yeah, exactly, the greatest hunters ever lived. Yeah, I mean that's what we're hopefully to be someday. But that the struggling hunters encompasses more than just hunting. Like it was kind of a daily thing because we realized that if you're a hunter, that you're going to be struggling with more than just hunting. But we called it the struggling hunters. But there's a lot trying to stay motivated to do the podcast. It's not always easy, but we struggle. We get here and doing it. We're not doing it perfect, but we're getting through it. But so on the back side of that, to wrap up what Eric was saying there, bringing back in the struggling hunters is, everything, nothing is easy to do. And, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But on the other side of it, hopefully you guys can hear our enjoyment of doing this together. Being able to get on and talk hunting once a week and sharing it with you guys is probably the biggest thing. So, hopefully whether you feel like you're getting value out of it, which I hope you are, or not, I appreciate the listen. But this is, it's we're trying to be honest, and that's why it's the struggling hunters.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, no, that's a good point. And um, I was thinking of, kind of want to wrap it up.
Yeah, we've been going for about half hour.
Yeah, we'll kind of make it a short one. For the end of the year, but uh, I gotta stop doing this. I thought of something to say and then I lost it. You said something that made me think of a point, and then I lost it.
Of
It's
us
kind of
being the struggling hunters.
what's that?
Of us being the struggling hunters. Being
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. Well, I can't remember exactly how I was going to put it, but I think it was the thought of how you said like there's struggles in all kinds of things, and yeah. So that's the one thing is like struggling to get on the podcast and just plugging away is the consistency, is just having that consistency every week, and consistency is key for success, and I think that goes in all aspects of life, is just trying to be consistent and doing little things like that, like even in me and Joe's personal life, the discipline of getting on here every week uh makes you learn how to be more disciplined in other aspects of your life. And I don't know if anybody expects to make like one YouTube video or one podcast and they're gonna blow up and be the next Logan Paul or something. It's not gonna happen. I mean, it's a grind. You got to put in the work, and you got to keep plugging away. And um, I think a lot of people, they get so excited about that one. It's always good. I mean, you got to start somewhere, but they always get so excited about that one project or that one video or that one podcast, and then they hit submit and they think it's just gonna blow up. But me and Joe have been humbled on that fact. I mean, we both thought that we'd kind of be a little bit bigger and a little bit broader than we currently are or whatever. But then at the same time, we're excited about the analytics that we have. I mean, we're like, wow, man, it's amazing that we got this many people that listen to us. It's amazing that we got this many people that subscribe to us. And it's a pretty cool, uh, uh, experience, especially for a couple guys that just, I mean, it's just amazing. We don't have we're not a part of a magazine. We're not a part of a TV show. We're like, hey, let's start a podcast and see where it goes. And here we are. And we've done pretty good. I mean, I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about it. And I think 2021 will be a good year for us. Hopefully it'll be a good year for America, man. 2020 has sucked. but one good thing that came out of it was the struggling hunters. So with that said, subscribe to the channel.
Give us a like.
Give us a like. Friend. Tell a friend. Follow us on the podcast portion. And Joe, I'll let you get us out of here.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
And with that being said, guys, we appreciate the listen. Hopefully you laughed a little bit. Hopefully you felt a little heartwarming inspiration. And we'll talk with you guys again. Have a good one.
Later, guys.
Hasta.